Welcome to Songwriter Speaks. My name is Alana, and I'll be moderating today's special Songwriter Speaks session with West Thebarton. Firstly, I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're on Kaurna land and sovereignty was never ceded, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to West Thebarton. We have Nick, Caitlin and Ray. Do you want to just say something about West Theb? Because I feel like the bio read is kind of never a good time for anybody.
We're West Thebarton. Well, 3/7 of West Thebarton. We're a rock band from Adelaide, the western suburbs, because the west is the best. And we've been doing this for a couple of years now, I guess. So, we can't wait to chat about all of our songwriting hints and tips and hopefully don't give away too many secrets.
Yeah.
Nice one. Well, we'll just get straight into it then. What drove you to pick up instruments and, start playing in a band, right from the beginning?
I think the first instrument that I had bought for me that I liked, that wasn't a piano or a violin, was a little red Squire Stratocaster, because it looked like my dad's.
Yeah.
I guess I grew up with him playing guitar and bass around me, and I kind of wanted to emulate what he was doing, really.
Oh, okay. I was about 10, I think, when I started playing drums, and I was at school and the music teacher was talking about some percussion ensemble, and I was like, I get to hit stuff, that'll be cool. And I was like this very tiny version of myself that decided to spend all my parents' money on a drum kit, I guess. And then I didn't really picture getting into a band or anything like that at that time. I was just like, okay, this is cool. And then the older I got, the more I was like, I can actually go and do something and have a bit more fun with it, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I was 5 or 4 or something, and my dad bought me this really crappy acoustic guitar, and it was just meant for me to walk around the house with. But I got obsessed with asking my mum to take photos of me with it. And then anyway, maybe 3 or 4 years later, I was like, no, I really want to try and play this thing, and I just became absolutely obsessed with having it around, holding it all the time, walking around the house with it, and I think it's probably grown from there.
Yeah. So you're always a front man then, wanting your press photos done.
That sounds really bad when you say it like that, doesn't
Sorry.
it? Hey, Mum, take these photos.
It's cute. Most, if not all, musicians start learning a few covers and the songwriting comes later. Can you pinpoint the moment where you sort of were like, I want to write my own material, or was there a driving force, or did it come organically, or did you always just do it?
I think, in terms of covers, I think we've all played in bands that have predominantly been covers. And I remember doing birthday parties when I was 13 with blokes that I was playing in a band with. Brian, actually, and I, he's another member of West Theb. We had our first band, when we were 13, and we played, Green Day covers, and it's always been guitar music for me.
That's cute.
So that was fun. And Rage Against the Machine covers, and Brian could do note perfect solos at the age of 14. But I think I stopped wanting to do covers because I couldn't do them very well. I couldn't play other people's songs very well. So I just started, anytime I pick up a guitar, somebody will ask me to play a song that they know, and I don't really know any. So I just kind of made up my own things and tried to make that sound as good as I could. What about you? You used to play some pretty good covers of a few.
Yeah, you used to have a YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel of drum covers, I think.
This is why I was laughing, because I was like, I hope they don't bring that up. I did some Rage Against the Machine covers as well, actually. Bit of a cool thing. Obviously, when I started playing when I was a little kid, I was so stoked to be playing Michelle Branch and Sugar Babes or something like that. But I don't know. I can't really pinpoint a moment. If anything, songwriting for me probably intimidated me a bit, because with covers, I could just, unlike you apparently, could just get it right and be fine with it and could impress my parents about, oh yeah, I played this song. It's your favorite song, remember? But songwriting's that just next level where you've got to be a little bit more confident, I think, which I'm probably still struggling with. So yeah, I don't know. What about you, Ray?
For me, it was I used to play covers everyone in the world. You play covers and you'd be able to play a Led Zeppelin song and you're like, look at me, look how cool I am. And I remember being in year 9 or something, And, you always idolise the older kids. And there was this older dudes, and they were just the coolest guys. And they were in a band, and we were like, oh, I haven't heard that song before. They're like, oh, yeah, that's because we wrote it ourselves. And I remember thinking, oh, man, you wrote that? Oh, if I want to be that cool, I need to write a song. So I started writing songs because of that. And I looked back actually probably like a year ago at some of like these lyrics that I wrote and like chord progressions. And I look back being like, oh my God. But I think that was it. I just was like, oh, I want to be like playing songs that people are like, oh, okay, that's cool. I've never heard that before. I guess that's where it started. Yeah.
Nice one. So there's no right or wrong way to write a song. Well, maybe there is, but I don't think there is. I don't hope there is. Some artists present fully formed songs to their band, and some bands have a few key songwriters, and some bands just jam it out until they've got a song and they're like, oh, hey, we just wrote a song. Let's work on that. What's your preferred method as a group, or do you like mix it up?
Well, it changes, and I also think with 7 heads in a room, like we've spent quite a long time figuring out the most efficient way. Because I guess if we as a 7-piece jam, sometimes some stuff, like really great stuff comes out. Sometimes some really off-brand stuff that we wouldn't ever turn into a West Seb song comes out. And then sometimes it's just a mess. Like it's an absolute mess of noise and you don't actually have any path through it. And it's fun. But depending on the idea, sometimes it works really well if somebody brings just the chords. And then, we did that with one song recently that I brought some chords and then threw that out to everybody, and then we spent maybe half an hour working on that so that it was in everybody's brain. And then over the course of a few weeks, lyrics started to come and structure started to come and drums started to come. And that feels like a really good way for us. But then it changes. Sometimes there'll be a Ray will come with all chords, all lyrics, then we just flesh it out with other extra bits. But I tend to like the approach of having the seed of an idea that's got a few sprouts on it already and then seeing what the others can bring. Because I can't put lyrics to a song that Ray can. I can't put drums to a song that Caitlin can. I can't do what Batters can do with a lead guitar melody line. Mm-hmm. So I really rely on the others to help me with my songwriting to flesh out an idea rather than dropping something on everybody and being like, I've garage banded it, here, learn it.
Yeah, this is how it is. Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
Exactly like this.
Yeah. And then sometimes the translating is hard as well. Like I won't necessarily have a drum idea in mind. Yeah. And I don't speak drum, but Caitlin does. And Caitlin doesn't speak guitar or melody like I might, or bass. So like, I think that becomes frustrating a little bit, is trying to explain parts. Like,
I think every band has that, like, you're like, do it this way. Why aren't you understanding what I'm saying?
Like,
and meanwhile, someone's like, you're pulling me like all these different ways and you haven't once told me what I should actually be doing.
Duolingo should have like a drum speak language or something.
Someone should develop that app.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing we've learned over the years is just, because there's 7 of us, it's really hard to just jam out. Like I've been in bands before where we just jammed out songs and you kind of like, oh yeah, cool, like this works. But really, I think like the best way and what we do mainly is like someone brings an idea or a fully formed song, but everyone's ego is kind of like gone now after being together for so long that everyone's just like, oh cool, like I think that this would sound better with this and that and that. And I think our songs kind of, it's like everything gets thrown at it and then no one really cares if things are added or taken apart that they're like attached to. And I think it's a really kind of interesting way because it means that even though 7 people didn't come up with the riff or the chords or whatever, everyone has like some input in the song. It's really like unique and really cool because I don't know, like you were saying before, it's hard for you to write bits of songs where you don't really necessarily go with, but you're always going to be inputting song like bits into the song in different ways, which is cool.
I really love sort of almost pushing the boat into the water and then seeing who else wants to like sail it.
Yeah.
There was one session we did recently where, you come with an idea and then at a certain point I didn't know how to instruct any further. And I was just like, this is just what I've got. I don't really know where to take it. And then, Josh and Brian kind of like went in their corner, started kind of like 1-2ing ideas that I wasn't even a part of, that then they figured out what they wanted to do and threw it back into the ring, and then it really worked. And so suddenly this kind of communal songwriting style emerges for us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, as Ray was saying, that's I think an ego thing when you're not particularly attached to anything that you're giving to the family or to the group. And that's kind of the happy medium that we've reached.
Yeah, that's a good way to be for sure. So circling back to, you said that sometimes you like write some off-brand stuff.
Yeah.
What do you do with those songs? Like famously, Bruce Springsteen gave Because the Night to Patti Smith.
True.
Have you ever done anything like that, or would you consider it?
Definitely would consider it. I mean, if Patti Smith, like, hey, I've got a bunch of songs. It's really funny. Like we've really become like one of those bands now that's like nothing's off limits, and I think it like. Definitely when we were starting, we were like, oh no, that doesn't sound garage rock enough, like throw it in the bin. But now we'd try and like at least salvage lots of ideas. Like, you know, sometimes an idea is off brand. It might, you know, be something that doesn't work, but we're like, oh cool. Like that bit, everyone really liked playing. Like let's chuck it in a bridge or something like that.
Yeah, there was one really good example recently where Healy has got sort of a bent towards like hardcore and heavier music. And we just had this bit in a song, like it was a bridge that we couldn't quite figure out or whatever, and he just kind of like came with this like really, I guess it was almost like a stoner doom sounding progression, and for some reason it worked perfectly in what sort of became more of a garage punk song. But if that had been the initial idea, we probably would have been like, yeah, like let's see where it goes. But instead, it was almost like a moment of inspiration that suddenly slotted itself into a song that a few years ago we probably would have been scared to do. We'd probably been like, that doesn't fit, doesn't feel right. Feels weird. It feels too far in that direction. But I think we've just gotten more confident. We're more willing to try a couple of things.
And also, I think like songs that, you know, might be a bit off brand or like we're not really, you know, that can be heaps of fun to play, but we know just aren't ever going to fit anywhere. We like just mucking around with them sometimes. Like, you know, the cool song to just like piss around with while you're waiting for everyone to set up their stuff.
Maybe one day they'll be on brand, like you'll do a Bob Dylan and like...
Yeah.
I want to do an
change and, like,
Afrobeat
totally
record.
go-
That'd be great.
You want to do what, sorry?
Like an Afrobeat record.
Yeah.
That was one of the jams we had on Sunday, and that was pretty cool. That's something we haven't tried before. I don't know how good it was.
Cool. Sorry, let me just gather my thoughts. So how do you know when a song stops being like something that you're jamming out, and like when does it become an actual song that you're like, okay, let's add this to the set? Can you pinpoint that, or is there like a feeling, or does everyone like vote because there's 7 of you? Like,
We have got a tiebreaker, don't we? No, I think we've always, and I've always had this thought that I just want to have fun playing live shows. Like, to me, like playing in a band is live shows. It's not really like, there's other stuff and there's other fun stuff, but the most fun you'll ever have in your life, and I've ever had, is playing live shows. So if I can imagine a song that we've written translating into that stage, and, you know, me being able to jump around and everyone having a good time playing it without kind of stuffing up too many parts of it, then I think it's ready. But I guess when you pull that trigger, you've kind of got to like dip your toe in the water sometimes. So, you know, we've had times when we've like really pushed to get a song out just because we're like, oh, we've been working on this for 6 months now. Let's just try it. And it's kind of been really awkward because you're like, that song's just not that good, but we've just put a lot of time into it. But I think now we're getting very good at like having fun with our songs and playing them like fun in the studio space. And when we kind of get to that level where we're like, oh yeah, cool, this is enjoyable, then we know it's, you know, ready to go.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was one run of shows that we did, and we'd written a bunch of new songs, and we really liked them, obviously, as most songwriters and band members can attest. Like, sometimes you get sick of playing the old stuff. So, you know, the first record was out in 2018, and these were shows maybe like start of the year or maybe end of last year. And we had a few songs we really wanted to play and we'd been working on for a little while. And we all felt they were ready, and we were like, cool, let's open the set with it. Like, let's just play all of these new songs. I remember we were telling James at our label, like, what the set list was and what we were doing. And he was sort of like blown away that we were trying, you know, a new song as the opener. He's like, wow, you must be really confident in that. And we were all just like, yeah, I guess, but we're just bored. We just want to play the new thing.
I think that's what we mean. Like, we're getting really good at visualizing like how like it's going to look on stage and how the crowd's going to react to our songs, to the point where we're like, no, this song would actually be cool opening up the set. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's always been a consideration. I know, like even on Sunday, like we'd all kind of like look at each other and kind of go, will this work live? Is it interesting? Like, what does a listener get out of this? Is this us just playing because we like it, or is this actually objectively saying something, or is it making you feel something?
The funny thing that I noticed as well, coming in as the last, like most recent member being added, everyone just has this like unconscious almost way of understanding all of those points that you said, and it's not really communicated. It's like this funny thing where we're like, we can all tell it's kind of shitty. Like, we're all like, none of us are liking that. And like, it's not like there's one dude that's like, actually, I really like that piece of crap song. Like, we all, it's like this funny thing, like this whole entire like accidental demographic understanding brand thing just happens without us really meaning to. I think it's like, if we're having a like kind of an average time writing a song, we're probably going to have an average time playing it. So it's pretty obvious. I mean, I don't know if that's what you guys think as well, but it seems
I totally
like,
agree.
yeah, seems like luckily we don't have to like feel awkward with somebody in the band and go like, oh, he likes all those songs, that sucks. So yeah, seems fairly smooth.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's pretty on the page.
That's good. That's what you want if there's 7 of you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think as well, we've kind of grown up really kind of like being very tight and like personally very tight to each other. So it probably runs in line with that. Like, we just pick up all these cues off each other, and it's so easy to tell, like when we're in the studio, just like, I'm not enjoying this, and I know you're not, and I bet you two aren't either. So like,
yeah. Nice. So can you tell us about a song that took a lot of effort to get right, and then a song that didn't take a lot of effort, that flowed naturally, and what do you think the differences were?
Probably got a few examples. Can you think of any? I got a couple in my mind.
Like recent?
Oh yeah, like any.
What's the song on the album? I forgot the name of it. Like,
Oh, Do You Believe?
Yeah, Do You Believe?
Right.
That song took so long. And
Yeah.
I feel really bad because I wrote that song.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I came with the idea. But I remember having that riff, and we tried it in 100 different ways. And then it'd be like, nah, let's not worry about playing this anymore. It's too much effort. And then we'd just be revisiting it, and it'd be like, oh, hey guys, you know that riff that I wrote? Like, can we chuck it in there? Everyone's like, oh God. And then I think like one day it just clicked. It was like, how about we just make this like the whole song? Everyone's like, oh, I don't know about that. And we did it. And I remember looking at Healy, because he plays the whole song, that riff, and he was like, oh, that works, man. That works. But I'm talking about like 2 years of
Right.
just
Yeah.
hanging
I
on
had
that
like
riff.
5 different bass lines for that same song, even when we got it to that point.
Right.
I was working on things that just weren't working. It was like a cursed chalice or something. It just like kept passing that riff to different ideas, and then
Yeah.
finally, settled and it
Yeah.
worked.
Which one was easy?
Oh, an easy one.
Yeah, what's an easy one?
We've written a song lately called Desire. I feel like that's just been the easiest
Yeah.
thing that we've ever written. Like, the chords were just there, and they were just like, I remember the first time, I think Brian played them to us, and I remember just like feeling a few goosebumps and being like, oh wow, that's really good way of putting chords together, man. And then everything just flowed, and like, I think the second time I heard the chords around, like lyrics just came into my mind, and it was like bang, 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 bang. Like, I was singing the whole song in the first time we played it. The dynamics were just there, and it was like, oh wow, like, this is a really kind of fun song, and I don't think I've ever not had fun playing it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those songs when we play live as well, like, I see that come up next on the set list, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what you guys...
That song's
You guys
like,
might be like,
that,
oh,
no,
nah.
that song's like one of the few songs that we've done recently that hasn't gotten like West-ebbed, where it gets it gets thrown into the bull ring, and then 7 bulls run at it, and it gets chopped up into a million different parts, and then we
Right.
eventually decide that it was actually pretty good how it started.
Yeah.
This one didn't even get to that point. Everyone was just agreed, like, yep, that's wild. That works super well, super easy. I don't think we made any changes
Yeah.
to where it started.
Do you think the day that song was brought forward, you had like a different mindset to the previous song, or it was just one of those things that was so
No.
natural?
It's hard, the alchemy of
Yeah.
songwriting. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes it just happens on you and you just feel it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's the cadence of the final chord.
Yeah.
Like,
It's nice
just
when it happens
convinces you
because it
that it
keeps you
works.
going
Yeah.
through like the ones that are harder when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I hate this. Why did I choose to
Yeah.
do this with my life?
yeah,
You
totally.
know, when that happens, you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is all right.
yeah, absolutely.
This will keep me going for another 2 years before it happens again.
I think we're all big believers though, like you got to be in a good frame of mind and you got to put yourself in like a good studio space, and you kind of just got to like align the stars and then everything's going to click. And I think that when we wrote this song Desire, everyone was just like, you know, come back from like a long weekend holiday or something like that. Everyone's just in such a good mood. Like, we're jamming in a place in down the road in Summerton Park where we recorded our album. We're like, oh, this is the best. And everything kind of just like meshed together really well. Like we didn't feel like we needed to try too hard. Whereas maybe when, you know, we've written other songs before, we've been like, oh, you got this idea? Cool. All right. Oh, man, it's really late. It's 11 o'clock. Like, I just want to get home.
Yeah, I think that's a struggle as well. It's almost, and maybe it is the having 7 friends when we do have that one little idea. That's almost like that one little idea is just the invitation to come and hang out. And that's the invitation to come to a party. Like the party itself, you can plan as much as you like for it, but sometimes like the vibe is just right. And like everybody's having a really good time. Like it's working. That's kind of how that song felt. It was, everyone was invited and everyone, you know, to use the analogy, everyone was having a good time.
Yeah.
And it came from that.
Yeah, everyone wanted to be there.
Yeah, totally.
So circling back to some of the like songs that are hard or just haven't finished, like, do you think you'll ever circle back to those songs? Like, let's say like, I don't know, you're in your late 40s or something. You're like, we're going to revisit all these like songs we thought that were trash in our like 20s. Like, do you think you'll ever do that, or do you keep record of even those like ideas that you thought were like terrible at the time?
So many demos. We have got demos
got digital
to fill
archives.
to fill up bloody Google. They do fill up Google, actually.
I guess you do. Like, I mean, I've come back to recently. I've brought like even just one little part of a song came from a song that I wrote when I would have been like 19 or 20, and like it's only a few notes, but I know exactly where I first remembered coming up with that, and then to actually have somewhere to put it now is really good. So I don't necessarily think that the demos in their entirety that we've recorded, and there's a lot of them, would ever come back in that form, but they've organically come from, you know, individuals who are probably going to be thinking a similar way, or I don't know, sometimes a song or writing a song is just a sort of a bit of a patchwork of different memories or different moments or different things that you've kind of put together that you've come up with over a long period of time. And yeah, I don't doubt that those sounds or those songs or those chord progressions might be forgotten for years, and then one of us will happen upon it one day, like scrolling through all the old demos and go like, hey, like this might actually work. This could be a really good thing.
It could actually then become like a real natural, like easy song to write.
Because I mean, I know for me, like I listen back to voice memos that I make and things like that, and I don't even remember doing them, but I think they sound amazing. I'm like, as if I did that. Like, I feel like that's way better than what I can do now. But for some reason, it wasn't ready to be a song then. Yeah, it can only be ready later.
I've noticed that with 7 musicians in a room as well, it might just be like the combination of what everyone's putting forward that's the reason that some particular riff or anything isn't sounding great. It's like a recipe that you accidentally add salt to. It's like, okay, well, here we are, like, kind of tastes a bit crap. But like later on, I've noticed like a few people in the band will reference an older riff, like be like, oh, do you guys remember this riff from blah, blah, blah? What if I chuck that in? And there's always like this kind of understanding that things might come back at some point, just in a different way, you know. But like, as for like the actual complete song, I don't think we've ever like gone straight back to something that we've left and tried to pick it back up again and be like, maybe we just weren't ready for that. Like, it's just something about it had to be changed for it to come back, basically. Yeah.
I think as well, like that's all kind of well and good for the music bits, but when I'm writing lyrics, I try and kind of like keep a memory bank at least of like every single lyric I've written, because like I don't know, I feel like when you're writing lyrics, they're kind of attached to a certain point in time or an idea or whatever. And there's been heaps of times when I've just heard something that the guys are playing. I'm like, oh, that lyric from that song that we cut really could fit well over that. Like I've done that heaps of times. And I really I like being able to reuse or repurpose lyrics like that, not because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered writing new lyrics, but because it's like, oh, okay, cool, like that story gets to live on. It's not, buried with
It's not like
the
a
song.
wasted thought.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
like been hanging on to on a piece of paper, or a voice memo forever.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And that's one of the really cool things about, I guess, songwriting in general, is that, especially being a lyricist, you can kind of add things in and they don't need to rely on like a whole band putting something together. You can kind of put it over the top and it can be independent. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And when the context changes, like I've noticed when you've done that and the context changes and it doesn't improve the lyrics, but the lyrics just take on a different meaning when they are in a new song. And then when it's just like, oh, I get to hear that I really liked there now come out and mean something completely different because now it's in a slow song or now it's in a really fast punk song. Like I really love the malleability and that you don't attach a lyric to a song like it's never being used again. That's it. That's the only time it's being used. I think it's a really cool approach.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's good. It's good to like repurpose them that way. And, to anybody listening, like they could mean anything as well. So like it doesn't have to be attached to, anything at a time. So how do you think your writing has evolved over time?
It's gotten better, you hope.
I think
That's the dream.
I don't know, geez. Album 2.
yeah, we'll see. Everybody else can be the judge of that. You want to?
Oh, I was going to say that from being the last person into the band, I've seen the progression in over like a couple of years even. So please be reassured. It's definitely
Yeah, I guess, yeah, we're not writing. I think I remember the shift when we started, like, feeling a bit more confident and maybe writing more, I don't know, more heartfelt, for want of a better word, but also more succinctly. I think there was definitely a point in time where we were just like, okay, like, we know how to get this idea. This song is speaking to us with this idea. We kind of know how to get that idea out quicker, better, more effectively, in shorter time, more to the point. There was a definite point in time, maybe a couple of years ago, like probably lined up pretty well with when Caitlin joined, when it was kind of like, cut it there. We don't need the 2-minute interlude in the middle of a song anymore. Like, we don't need to do that. We don't need a 3-minute intro. Like, we weren't doing that all that often, but sometimes we were hesitant to like clip those things. But I think we got pretty efficient. I think it's probably the best way of putting it.
And now everyone kind of does their homework as well. Like when, we practice once or twice a week and then, we write songs and stuff. But people don't just wait until the next week to put in their part. They're like listening to it over and over again, like listening to demos, being like, oh yeah, cool. Like this might sound cool over the top. So everyone kind of like does their homework and kind of puts in a little bit more effort and makes it easier on all of us. Things get way more succinct.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like things move quicker, and nothing makes you feel better than finishing a song really quickly rather than, a huge drawn out process and it sounding crap for ages. Like that's just demoralizing.
So no one's sitting around just waiting for like inspiration to strike while they're like doing their mundane tasks and stuff. They're working on it. Yeah.
And it's meant that rehearsal, because we're we take rehearsal quite seriously. Yeah. You kind of need to wrangle that many people together to still have something sounding good. Yeah. You kind of need everyone together as often as possible. And so in doing that, the practices that we have, it will be like one song. Yeah, we're pretty happy with where we're at with that one. Cool. All right, next. And like we kind of can roll through things and not be laboring on them. And I think that's probably testament to how we approach songwriting now. It's kind of like we're all on the page with the song. We know where it's at that point in time. We know we're not going to perfect it just yet. Yeah. But it's like, everything is a work in progress. Every, all 25, 26 songs we might be working on have got their point that we're up to with them. And I don't think we beat ourselves up as much anymore. Like, There's maybe one
Yeah.
song recently that we worked on that we're just like eventually just like I think we've worked on this
I
one.
think,
long enough.
I think it's time to call it, guys.
Yeah. It's good that you know when that time approaches as
God,
well,
yeah.
because otherwise you just
Yeah.
like spend
Yeah.
forever,
Yeah.
like actual forever on it.
And it can just make you feel so crap as well when you're putting in so much effort, especially if you're like one of the, one or two people out of the 7 that want to make it work, and you're just like, oh God, like this is so hard. Like I wish I could just come up, like snap my fingers and, the bridge would appear, but it can be so tough sometimes. So being good at that now is like just the best thing.
Yeah.
That's good. And do you find that the songs are like perfected? They're not really fully complete until you've performed them on stage, seeing as you're such a live
Definitely.
band.
Definitely. I mean, because at the end of the day, like, we don't play just for ourselves anymore. We play, to see people in the audience, and there's nothing better than kind of seeing people get into your song. So I can't remember what song it was, but it's one that's never really seen the light of day, but we played it live and we were all frothing on the song. We thought it was the best thing ever. And just to see people's reactions be like, oh. And then looking back, you're like, yeah, that song is like all over the place. Hey, it's not that great.
I've definitely picked up on that as well. Hey?
Yeah.
We have like that energy that bounces between us and the crowd sometimes, and it's like you miss the mark and you're like, oh, okay, never mind. Next song, please. It's a bit embarrassing, and you just realize, okay, maybe we'll change a few things, or maybe not play it ever again. Something. I don't know.
Cool. So we touched on this just a little earlier, but like songwriting splits. How do you decide, like with your band, it's pretty much split 7 ways equally every time, right?
All for one, one for all.
Yeah.
Yep.
And have you ever been in like other songwriting situations where it's not been like that?
I think we had a chat about it a while ago, like when we first kind of, just before the album or something like that, and we were like, oh, who wrote this, who wrote that? And then we were like, you know what, writing a song is more than just, oh, okay, you wrote that bass line or you wrote that riff or whatever. It's like everything to do with the band, especially with us. Like it's like everyone puts in so much effort that it's hard to decide on like songwriting splits.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to it than actual, the end product.
Yeah.
But you've definitely been in bands before where it's like, oh no, I wrote that and that, and then you wrote that. So I think we're gonna have to split the songwriting credits. And surprise, surprise, those bands didn't take off. But I feel like sometimes when you're trying to like put a price tag on every little bit of a song, it can have like a huge effect on the greater band in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And it sounds like you like really collaborate like huge amounts of time on every song altogether anyway.
totally.
So
Yeah.
it'd be sort of hard to break that apart.
Yeah, and I think that understanding was agreed to so unanimously because everyone knew how much work goes into a band like ours. Like that model doesn't work for every musician. It wouldn't necessarily work for producers or people maybe in a different sphere. But the amount of time that we spend together and touring and the unpaid labour that we all do for the benefit of the other 6 people, it just made sense that like, well, if those things are the thing that is bringing us together to produce it, it's 7 ways.
Yeah. Why break it apart?
Yeah, there's no other way of looking at it.
Yeah. And when did you realize that your songs started like gaining traction, like with your audiences and stuff? Like, can you pinpoint a moment when people started like recognizing your songs or like singing along?
I think when my partner's brother's friends were like, you playing that West Theb band, Moving Out. I was like, how does he know this song? And then I'm like, oh, that's right. Moving Out got added on the radio. And then I just had like a bit of a light bulb moment being like,
the
okay,
radio
cool.
helps.
People know our songs. And then I think like probably 2 days after that, we went to Sydney and it was a sold out Sydney show. And I just remember being like, wait, how can we sell out a Sydney show? I don't have that many friends that live in Sydney, and I know that none of us do. And we're like, okay, our songs are kind of taking off now, which was pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, that was a pretty cool feeling.
Did you feel like overwhelmed? or like just like,
It
oh,
felt
this
foreign.
is a bit weird?
It felt weird. It wasn't overwhelming because, you ask for that your whole life.
Yeah.
You don't,
They're going to reject it.
exactly. But it was just really weird. I remember being like, how come you guys know the lyrics to this stuff? Like,
Yeah.
it was cool.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked, to be honest. That was just, you don't get nervous about it. Well, maybe some people might. They might think, oh, now I need to live up to that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I was just like, yeah, like lucky us, because, not that many bands get to be played on the radio.
Lucky us. Yeah,
Not
that's
that many
what I
bands
felt.
get to be like, that one song for us was like such a, what's the word? Like, it was like rocket fuel.
Yeah.
Because suddenly it was on the radio. Suddenly a few extra 100,000 people had heard it around the country. We weren't just Adelaide.
Yeah.
And
it's luck, but also you worked hard. Like, you'd already been a band for how many years already?
I think we were band for 3 years at that point.
Yeah,
maybe
and you were
like,
gigging pretty consistently.
Yeah, definitely. We were doing heaps of stuff, and we were kind of like, oh yeah, cool. Like, we're having a good time. This is great. And then when that all started taking off, it was like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, this doesn't happen to a band from Adelaide, especially not in my experience. Like, what?
Yeah,
is
I
going
remember
on?
seeing other people at like festivals wearing West Thebarton t-shirts. That's
Yeah.
like what I feel like.
That was
I was
cool.
like, oh yeah, they're like becoming a band.
Yeah,
like,
that was cool.
Yeah.
That was
that
cool.
was very cool. But it was hard work. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I joined the band. Caitlin and I were both fans of the band before we
Right.
joined. And I think Caitlin was in the crowd at my first gig, and I think I was in the crowd at Brian's first gig. And I guess
I can't remember my first gig.
And well, Ray, you were the nucleus. You were there from the start, and in watching the band progress to the point that I joined, and then being on the inside and seeing how much work Brian had been doing in managing and administering the band, and then I joined and started trying to help him out, and it was a long process to get to that point that we got to, and that was strategically trying to find a booking agent. That was like, mailing out every venue we could, like finding supports, like booking tours interstate by ourselves. Like, we didn't get all of that assistance. That all had to come from just wanting to play shows, but then 2, wanting to play shows in as many places as possible and have as much fun as possible, I guess.
And proving to industry that like you know what a booking agent is, and you know what
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes to manage a
Yeah.
7-piece band.
And I guess at that point in time, we knew that it was important, but we didn't give as much of a shit about it because we wanted the live show to be something to attend and something to go to.
Yeah.
So to then get any kind of recognition or success on the radio or in the recorded music format, like that, I think was surprising and exciting for us, because we were just like, well, we're just a live band. We just love shows. Like, we just want to play all the time. But now people can listen to us without us having to be there in their city. And I think that was a real mind-blowing moment as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of industry as well, like, I think that another like light bulb moment was when our booking agent Harry, he hit us up out of the blue, like the first festival we ever played, Groove in the Mood, like 2015 or something like that. And this guy's like, oh, hey, I'm going to be coming to Adelaide from Melbourne. I'll be coming up to your festival to see you guys. I'd love to have a chat backstage and we'll do it. I was thinking like, I wonder why this guy's hitting us up, because at the time I was like, oh, bands in Adelaide don't have management. They don't have booking agents. They don't, it just doesn't happen. And then when I met him and had a chat, I'm like, oh, wait, you came up here to see us. Oh, right, my name's Ray. Nice to meet you.
I hope we played a good show. Just
Yeah,
for you.
I think so.
Yeah, it was good fun.
He wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
Yep.
But on that's funny as well. Just, I mean, I know this is going off tangent a little bit, but we met our current manager, Tank, in much the same circumstance. Like, we're playing a show up in Brisbane, and we didn't have management. We, thought that we were doing a pretty good job doing things ourselves, and then Tank rocked up to the show, and he was in the green room backstage, and we just see this bloke he's not an old man, but he's older than us by a decade or so, and we're sort of like, who's this guy? Do you guys remember this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And we're just like, who's this guy? And he's just like, oh, I'm Tank. And we're just like, okay, like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I manage bands. And we're like, all right, we need to get back to the hotel. Can you help us carry some gear? And he's like, yeah, sure.
So he passed the test.
So he passed the
He
test.
definitely
Yeah.
passed the test.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what qualities do you like in a song as a listener? Like, is there certain things that you look for when you're when you hear like new music for the first time, you're like, that's a great song. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to it
Yeah.
2 or 3 or 10 times.
Oh, jeez. So many ideas in my head right now, but I don't know how to articulate them through the mouth. But
Well, I've been doing a thing where I'm trying to listen to. I realized how much music came out this year, and just how much of a weird year it's been, and how like disengaged I've been from trying to find new things and new music. And so now I'm trying to listen to a few albums a day that have been released at some point this year, and I'm finding the ones that I really like are like, I like groove at the moment. So just like something that's got feel to it. And even if it's recorded like objectively poorly, if it's got feel to it, I don't mind so much. So it's not really like one thing that I can hear in a song, but yeah, I guess at the moment for me it's groove.
Yeah.
Groove and authenticity, maybe.
yeah, I just really like hearing, authenticity. I mean, that's such a crap answer, but I just love it when you can hear a song and you're like, someone like shed some tears or like, like some blood's been spilled over this song. And that can be like, it doesn't need to be like a rock song or a singer-songwriter singing like a soppy love song or whatever. You can hear that even in like a rap song. Like when someone's like actually put in effort and you're like, oh, wow, like you can really tell, like, I just love hearing that. And I think it kind of must be some kind of like artist to artist, like ESP going on or something like that. But you can kind of pick up when someone's like put a fair bit of effort. And when I listen to those kinds of songs, it doesn't really matter the genre or what type of music. You can just tell it and you're like, oh yeah, cool. Like I like listening to that kind of music.
Yeah, you can tell that it's not been written as like, I've got to get from point A to point B to point C and that's my song finished.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Like this is just what it felt like when it sort of came out.
Yeah, totally.
So in terms of overall composition, what are your favourite West Thebarton songs? Like as a composition?
I still really like Reasons, which is a song off the first record that doesn't change much. It's pretty straightforward, but as a so I guess does feel and dynamic come into composition from a music theory? Not really. Maybe I'm just getting a bit.
I don't know anything about music theory.
You're the one that said composition. Like, come on.
All right.
Well, like I'm just mean not the lyrics. Like
Oh, cool. Sure.
Okay, yeah. I thought you meant from a theoretical point of view. I'm like,
Yeah, I guess I still reckon Moving Out is really good in terms of the parts that we all came up with. I think that was something that really worked. There's another new song that we've been working on called Humble Heart that is probably, in my mind, like the coolest like guitar 1-2 sort of call and response thing that we've done. And yeah, I still reckon Reasons is a really good, simple, slow build that we hadn't really done before and have sort of used a similar idea since. But that was really cool. I like those ones.
Oh, Jesus. I tend to like the more like moody kind of songs that get written in West Thebarton, I think. And that includes some of the ones that I wasn't a part of writing as well. I mean, I really like the way the Moving Out was written, to be honest, like for that predictable answer of that. But there's just something about it that kind of like, if it gets you to like move in any kind of way, like there's some kind of mood going along with it that's either getting you excited or like making you like think about stuff or whatever. There's another song that we've been writing, hopefully just about to record, called Modern Australia, of all the names. And I really like that one as well because it's got like a similar kind of feel that like it just gets you kind of like, changes the way you're feeling at the time. Or hopefully it's the game of doing that. But yeah. What do you reckon, Ray?
I like Bible Camp. I don't know why. I've like always
I
liked.
did not expect that answer.
Really?
No, I didn't.
What did you think I was going to say?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
No, I don't know why. There's just something about it. Like, I remember when, because Brian wrote most of it, and him writing it on a whiteboard because none of us could get like the bits, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like this makes sense. And I don't know why. Like, just the music of it, I think, is like my favorite West Thebarton song that we've written. Like, I just love playing it, and even if it, like I love singing it too, but just the music of it's my favorite.
And what about lyrically? What are your favourite West Thebarton songs?
I really love a lot of, because like to my ears, you can do so many different styles of like lyric delivery. Like there can be quick fire, there can be like really, soulful singing. There can be like almost like borderline rap kind of like, it's not rap, but it's like, it's got the same ethos as rap, and and it comes out and it's quick fire and it's like, you know, like a machine gun. And I really reckon, I think Bible Camp was the first time that I heard you like really go for the singing side of your vocal range. And so I think lyrically, the way that you sing that song, lyrically it's already brilliant, and then the way you sing it as well really connects. And I think it's such a beautiful song, and it's such a heartbreaking song as well. I think that's probably my favourite lyrical one. I mean, there's more. I love all of them, obviously, but that's probably number one for me. You're all right. You're all right. What do you like lyrics-wise?
Don't pay attention. No. Ivan is cool. I like Ivan.
I was
Were you going
I
to
was
say
about
Ivan?
to say Ivan, actually.
That's good to know. Yeah, I don't know. Whenever we have that in the set, I'm always like, oh, here we go. Let's get emotional now. I don't know. I like it.
I really like Bible Camp because, like what you said, Nick, like it's just like reminds me of like when I wrote the lyrics. It was like I was trying to like write something like Bill Withers would write, or like Otis Redding would write, and I just had so much fun writing it. And also like because when we sing it live now, or when I sing it live now, I don't sing the same lyrics as that I recorded it with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, cool, like that's a fun little bit. But yeah, Ivan was the only song on the first record, which kind of was just like a completely made up story about like, just like crap. No, just like
You're selling it really well.
no, just like yeah, just like a, you know, it's a song that I can't relate to. It's just a story about a bad person, and it was just like the first time I wrote something that I had no connection to, that was just like a completely fiction like story. And I think that's why I really like singing it, because it's like just so like removed. It's kind of like, oh cool, for like 3.5 minutes I get to be someone that I'm not, which is cool. And then a new song that we've written that's like a bit of a slower song. It's a very like acoustic kind of like stripped back song. I really like the lyrics to it because it's called Slow, and it's because it's kind of like, it was like some lyrics that was always going through my head whenever I'd be coming back to Adelaide from like overseas or interstate. And to me, like, it was always just like, oh yeah, cool. Like I know exactly that feeling. So when I sing that song, even when we're just in the studio, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I know exactly like where like these lyrics were written.
You know what's funny about that is like with Ivan, like you're so removed from it, but like me coming in and just being the drummer and having nothing to do with lyrics, I'm the one that's connecting with it. Like I was like, yeah, I get that, man. Like, and like little do I know that you're just like, what? Like, it's just funny. It's like it still does resonate with somebody in the band,
Yeah,
like
that's
even
cool.
though I didn't write the lyrics. Yeah, so it's just interesting. I didn't know that, so it's interesting to me.
Yeah. So long as the lyrics like resonate with somebody, that's the goal.
There's at least
right?
one person in the audience, right? Like that's me.
Well, I think it's always good to like not completely do the same style all the time, which is why you know, when I was writing Ivan, it was just like, oh cool, I want to put my feet into the shoes of someone that I'm not, and that's something.
Me.
Caitlin,
My shoes.
I fit my size 12s in her like size 4s or something, but I don't know. That's really cool actually. You know that even if I don't connect with that song, like as me, you do.
Yeah.
You should listen to the lyrics. You should look at the lyrics to that song.
It means something to me, all right?
Okay, I'm glad.
So that leaves me, I was actually going to ask, like, do you ever write from a third person or like make up a story? Obviously you do. Do you actively try to do that, or were you just like jamming that one day and you're like, oh, these lyrics came out, oh, I'm going to write about this, like this person?
I think I had some, it was like some lyrics that I wrote years and years before. And I think it was just, like I had a falling out with like a very close friend, and it was like a big falling out. And then I was just like, I compared this guy to Ivan Milat, and I was just like, I remember like writing. Yeah, I just remember like writing a few things and just being like, you know, like, this is you, man. And
I don't think the friend killed anybody.
no. But it was kind of like, it was more so like, oh, like from the outside, like you're the fly on the wall of this kind of person. And that was, you know, how I wrote these things on paper. And then I was like, oh, okay. Back to what I was saying before, I chucked them in a song and it was like, oh, okay, this is cool. But generally, like I try to write about things that I really connect with, and I try and talk about things from like a first person perspective, just because I find it so much more natural. And also, like, I'm the kind of person who every single song, apart from, you know, Ivan, has like a meaning, it's got a story, it's got such an emotion attached to it that I feel almost like a bit of an imposter if I don't have a connection. Like even when we play covers, like I really try and get connected with the lyrics and, you know, just try and like put even like a few lyrics in that are mine just to feel like connected.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like the audience is pretty discerning as well when somebody's not connecting with lyrics that
Definitely,
they're singing.
they can tell.
Yeah.
They're like a dog. They can tell if you're a bad person. They're like, no.
Not liking this song
Yeah,
tonight,
pretty much.
guys.
It's so obvious, isn't it? Like it's obvious when you're singing lyrics because you thought that word rhymed with the word before and it fit perfectly. When there's no emotion or any story in your own head, the audience can tell. Like even if they're just listening to it through headphones, they can tell so easily.
Yeah.
I think also with West Seb specifically, like feedback that I've gotten from people and fans and friends about our work and your lyrics in particular, Ray, is like on first listen in the context that we put them in a lot of the time, people don't pick up the stories and the meaning, but they'll listen to it again and then they'll get it. And then on the third or fourth listen, they'll have a completely flipped interpretation of what the song is actually about because the lyrics do have depth to it. And I think that's really cool about what you do in particular is that at first listen, and it's probably harking back to what we sounded like in the early days, like it does have this like high energy party sort of vibe to it, but then you sort of flip it, or you look underneath the water a little bit further and see how far that iceberg goes.
Lift the hood. Yeah.
Yeah, you look under the hood and suddenly you're getting this complete different story that takes a couple of read-throughs, a couple of listens. Like there's songs that we've been rehearsing recently to try and get ready to record that may have been around for like a year or two. And I'll listen to the lyrics now and I'll be like, oh my God, like I get that now. Like it almost took that time to learn the story or to put it to music and to make it make sense before I really got it.
Yeah.
And so I think the crowd and an audience and a listener can tell as soon as if you just did, you know what Ray's saying, like you just rhymed the first and third like stanzas or whatever you want to, you know, it's obvious. It's like, oh, that's how you happened upon that. I don't necessarily think that's how you write, Ray. I think it changes depending on the listener. The listener can pull so much more out of it and it's not an obvious style, which I think is cool.
And have you ever had like an audience member come up and be like, is this song about that? And you're like, it can be whatever you want it to be, but absolutely not.
Yeah, heaps of times actually. It's funny, like a lot of people, they get attached to like certain songs and I always kind of feel bummed out when we don't have those songs in that set list on that night or something. Because I've had a few people be like, oh, when are you going to play this song? I'm like, oh, really sorry, man. But then you have a chat to them after and they're like, oh, yeah, cool. Like, is this song about, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, how did you know that? Yeah. Like, the lyrics aren't that obvious. But also it's really cool when people are like, get their own attachments. For example, like Reasons, what Nick was talking before. I remember some guy, I think we're up in a festival in Port Macquarie, and he was just bawling his eyes out the whole song. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And he told me this story about how like, you know, he'd lost a family member and all this kind of stuff. And we were just like, wow, like that's hectic, man. That's hectic. And I remember giving him a big hug and he was just like, yeah, this is my favorite song, like, because I've got so much of attachment. So it's really cool when people just get attached to your stuff. Like I mean, now it kind of feels like normal, but there was a long time where it just felt like, this is really weird. Like, why is it having an effect on you?
Yeah.
But then I realized like so many songs have had that effect on me that if I was lucky enough to meet, you know, the person who wrote it, I'd be like, okay, I'm about to open up some emotions, mate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like
That's really nice.
That recollection in particular struck me as well. We played that song. That was a really important song for me. I lost my mum maybe a week before we played the Gov for the first time.
Right.
And so we played the Gov show and we played that song, and I cried when we played it. And then this bloke is standing front row in another
3
part of the
years later,
country
yeah.
3 years later in the same situation that I was, bawling his eyes out. And it was just like, I don't know, it just meant, to me, it just showed me that like a song isn't linear in its lifetime.
No.
It's kind of
And you can have this
spinning upwards or
connection with like a
something.
complete stranger.
Yeah.
Like bonding over that
yeah, I
same
think
thing.
that's
as
the
well.
coolest thing is like I don't know these people and they don't know me at all apart from singing in a band, and then it's like, oh wow, like
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
And have you ever had like a real disagreement as band members? Like a really big, like, I'm going to break up the band. Like, I hate this song. I don't want to put it in the set, or like any kind of like
We've definitely
disagreement like that.
said things that we do not like mean. Like, I've said some things I definitely wish I could take back. But
No,
I
never
think we're
over a
getting
song.
better.
Never over a song.
Never ever a song.
oh, sometimes over song. we've had these. I reckon me and you, Nick, have had like one or
yeah.
two. I've
think-
had them with every member of the band, I think. But I think it's just because we're so passionate about it that, you know, you do get fired up. But now, especially now, maturing, we've gotten heaps better with like, okay,
Not being too
there's a
emotional.
reason why you feel that way about this, and there's a reason why I feel this way about it. Let's just chat it out.
Yeah. And I think some of that comes from, you know, wanting what's best, what the individual perceives as being best for the band, or what sounds the best, or what's going to be, you know, then you start getting distracted by, you know, industry pressures as well. Like, well, what's going to be the most successful song, or what are most people going to like? And that's like crystal ball stuff. You don't
Yeah.
actually know. And then you get distracted from the genuineness of writing, and then, you know, ego and disagreements pop out of that, because you're just like, well, I think it's going to be so successful, and somebody else reckons, yeah, but it's crap. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything. It's meaningless. So why are you defending it so much? And so I think, yeah, at the heart of it, every artist or every person in our situation is just trying to make the next song or next thing as successful as possible, to give them the opportunity, for us to give us the opportunity to keep playing shows, like to keep traveling around the country and around the world, like doing the things we want to do. Our vehicle to do that is songwriting.
Yeah.
And so you get a bit emotional about it, a bit unreasonable sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, which is funny. But we're not really in that space at the moment, which is
That's
quite
great.
relieving.
That's nice to hear.
actually.
Is it just like when you have those disagreements, like a like timeout, this is like rehearsal's over for today, we'll like reconvene tomorrow? Is it just like, oh, let's get a beer, or
Yeah, I think we've
Let's
been
just
good
eat
at being
something.
like, oh, let's just sort this out another day. Like, we don't need to do it right now.
yeah,
Yeah. It
think-
almost doesn't
yeah.
require like compensation or a beer. It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there'll be a couple of sparks flying, and then it'll be like, all right, got that out of the system? Okay, good. Get on with it.
Things go back to normal so quickly now. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, I think it's definitely been one of those things where we've like taken the time to sort things out. You know, nothing's really that urgent, so it is good just to be like, okay, let's take a step back and just come back at it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so you're writing an album at the moment? Is that what
Perhaps.
I'm gathering? Sort
Perhaps.
of, maybe. Don't want
It's a
to.
collection of songs.
It's a collection of
Yeah.
songs.
We've
How
got-
do you
we've
go
got a
about
fair
like
few songs.
writing for a collection? Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. I think generally, because there's 7 of us, there's always new ideas. Like everyone's always got a new idea. So I guess everyone's kind of, you know, putting their foot forward, and we just work through songs and you know, we just get a collection of songs over time. Like it's kind of not rocket science in that regard, but we've been good at kind of like keeping everything really fresh. So we're not, you know, we've got songs that we're mucking around with still that are like 2-3 years old, maybe even from before the record. And it, you know, we might give ourselves 3-6 months off of a song and then revisit it after that. And you know that it's good if you kind of comes back like muscle memory, and you kind of know that maybe it was a bit forgettable if it's a really big struggle to
If
kind
you've
of
forgotten it.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And I think most recently trying to pull together a collection of songs just for our own benefit, to go like, okay, look, where are we at? Like we've got, you know, 6 or 7 different songwriters bringing different things. Like, what do we do next? Do we do 7 albums? Or do we try and refine the things? And I think we find commonalities between all of our ideas, and that might be in vocal delivery, or it might be in some of the structures, or it might be in tone, or it might be a style of playing bass, or...
Yeah, Brian did this really cool Venn diagram actually with all the songs that we've written, like, you know, since the album. And he's got like a couple of headers like big chorus or like slow and soulful and these things. And it's all a Venn diagram of overlapping things. And I'm like, that's amazing.
Is that going to be in like the liner notes or something? Like,
perhaps.
Could be,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
Or
I mean,
posters.
you know, it's
When
not an
there's
album
when there's
yet.
something-
We're not talking
Sorry.
about an album
Sorry,
There's
yet.
liner notes to put it in. Yeah, maybe.
it could be like a band poster, maybe.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
cool one.
That'd be cool.
I feel like people would be really interested to see these.
Yeah,
these
it's
photos. I
actually-
am.
The
I want to
dozens
see
of
them.
cross-outs of songs that,
Yeah.
that we don't reckon are good enough, and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he first did it though, I remember just being like, why
very bright.
Why hasn't anyone done this before? Like, this is the best way to look at like what songs actually match each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool.
that is cool. Yeah. So I think we'll close it up. But do you have any like advice for beginner songwriters or even emerging songwriters? Like, what is some advice that you wish you had, like starting out as a songwriter or starting out a band? Or
I'm very much of the opinion that you've got to figure it out yourself. Like, I started writing or trying to compose songs using like Power Tabs, which is like software that you could write tabs into, and basically for somebody who doesn't understand music theory, you could write in tablature and you could make songs that way and be like, oh, when I have a band that has 4 or 5 guitarists in it, because that's how I used to write, I could maybe do this post-rock sounding thing. And then that didn't go anywhere, and so I had to figure out a new way, and then I had to start trying to learn how to play things by myself. And yeah, like, I'm still not a really strong songwriter, but my craft has gotten better just from wanting to do it. Like, so for me, the biggest thing is like keeping enthusiasm for the thing. Even if the songs you're making aren't very good, or you don't think they're very good, still stay stoked on it, or do what you need to do to stay stoked on those songs. And if that means throwing a song away completely and starting something else, do it. If it means taking a little bit out of that song so that you don't feel like it was a total waste and putting it in a new one, sick. But like, you're not necessarily gonna be totally happy immediately. And then sometimes there's still songs that I'm not totally happy with, but I know that it's at a point where that's it. And that was the idea, that was a point in time, move on to the next thing. So I think, yeah, in essence, don't get too caught up on things for too long. Just keep moving through them.
I reckon the best thing I can say to myself is to try and write things that I want to play live and want to play live a lot of times. Because one thing I've learned about being in a band that actually tours is you will play that song so many times, so you better like it, basically. Yeah. So every time we're writing stuff, like if there's something that I feel like slightly uncomfortable from a drumming perspective, like, oh, it just feels funny, don't like how that feels or whatever, I'll try and do my best to make it feel comfortable for myself, just so that like I look forward to playing that song, basically. And take as much inspiration from like bands that I like, obviously not copying or anything like that, but just like, you know, what is it that I like about my favorite bands? Like, you know, how can I influence into this song with that, and try to keep it like something that I can look back on and be like, yeah, that's exactly how I would want it to sound from my instruments kind of perspective. But I mean, as a group, hopefully we're all doing that. But yeah, just try and enjoy what you're writing. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I wish I could give my younger self some advice of write for yourself and don't write the things that you think will sound cool or that other people will like, because chances are if you don't want to listen to your music but you think it's cool, no one thinks it's cool and no one wants to listen to it. The amount of songs that I wrote that, you know, I just weren't even genres that I enjoyed, but because I was like, oh, cool, this song might one day make me famous when I was like 15 or something, it's a waste of time, and you might as well
pick up on it, can't they, as well?
Exactly. And I think as well, don't get disheartened if people don't like your music as well, because if you're genuinely writing it because you like listening to it, then, you know, not everyone needs to always be giving you positive feedback. And I think that that's something that we've lost in, you know, social media age, all this kind of stuff is like this constant feedback and everything's always positive. Like, if you know something's good, then don't worry if other people aren't constantly saying it, because there's probably heaps of people that came to watch you live that just aren't coming up to say that. And they might have liked your stuff, but not everyone is the kind of person to always be keeping on, like telling you how good you are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something like, just because people aren't going out of their way to give you positive feedback doesn't mean that people aren't enjoying it.
Yeah. And also not everybody likes everything all of the time
100%,
either. So like,
100%.
you can't get bogged down in it.
People
Yeah,
like
exactly.
different things.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do
Thank
this.
you.
It was
Thanks,
nice
Alana.
talking to you.
Cheers.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.